I've got the Mario and Luigi like battle theme music stuck in my head.
It's good music.
It's fucking good.
Great music.
Lauren, like like just the other day I was in one of the areas and Lauren's like, John, this song's a bop.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, does it have different music for every area or no?
No,
I don't think it does.
actually, and the one she was saying was specifically the Teehee Sands, because every area is named after laughter in the Bean Kingdom.
That's right. Right.
I'm saving this for the cast. Come on.
Heck yeah. Okay, here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
I forgot what order I was going in there.
Like, you forgot my name.
John, Randall. Who's here? Who's here tonight, guys?
We're all here.
But yeah, we're back as always to talk about some video games, and I guess we can just kind of dive right into it. Kind of rolling in from our last episode, we kind of leaned into some of the Nintendo Switch Online multiplayer stuff that we've been playing, but with that most recent Nintendo Direct, I know it's probably been a month or two since that Nintendo Direct at this point, but you know, they announced the Game Boy games and then Game Boy Advance games as well, if you have the expansion pass. And I guess we've all just been kind of playing some retro single-player games as well. I know Randall's been playing something on his handheld as well, not necessarily through the Nintendo Switch Online. But I mentioned on a recent Save It for the Cast that two of the games that I was bouncing between were Banjo-Kazooie on Xbox Live Arcade and, playing that like Xbox remake, and then Wario Land 3. And I was really enjoying both of those games. I'd get kind of stumped on Wario Land and then go to Banjo, and then I just get kind of burned out on Banjo, just kind of, with that collectathon type game. It was kind of perfect to have those two games to bounce between. Yeah. But then we had a bunch of power outages here in Michigan with a winter storm around the time of recording this. We had like power was out for a couple days after one ice storm, and then it was back for 2 days, and then it went back out again. So because of that kind of got me a little bit off my Banjo game, being that I need to play on my Xbox plugged into a TV and whatever. But since I had the Switch all fully charged up when the power went out, I was like, hey, I got a little juice on this thing. So why don't I dig in? I was actually a little bit worried that I wasn't going to be able to play the retro stuff, because sometimes when you sign into the Switch Online, it like checks to see if you are allowed to play. Yeah. But maybe that's only for the expansion pass stuff. I'm drawing a blank actually now.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it thankfully didn't check this time, and I was able to pick up, playing some Wario Land 3 where I left off.
That's great.
And I'm kind of shocked. Like, I actually played a little bit more for another couple hours before we started recording tonight. I had already played about 5.5 hours of this game. I love how it actually keeps track of the individual games in the Switch Online app. If you hit like X or whatever and like look at like the details of the game, and it kind of gives you a little brief description and when what year it was released and whatever, which kind of crazy that Wario Land 3 came out in 2000. I mean, you can definitely tell it's a late Game Boy Color game.
That is wild.
But it's like, man, this is like post Nintendo 64 game, like Ocarina of Time existed and this game existed. But at the same time, it feels very modern in a lot of ways. Like, it feels like an 8-bit game, but it's freaking huge. Like, again, I've played for 7+ hours at this point of this game, and I don't even know if I'm close to beating it. I mean, I feel like I'm chipping away, kinda. But thankfully, like, I had posted a bunch of clips as I was playing, like with the, just saving a little 30-second clip on the Switch and posting it online. And thankfully, somebody had commented, like, because I was like, oh, for the 300th time, I like finally beat this section. Because as much as I'm loving this game, it is so fucking hard. It should be called Tedious Land 3, because it really is just like, everything you do, you have to like do it 5 times to like, okay, I have to jump, because it's almost works like a Kirby game where you have to like use power-ups from enemies to like get abilities, but you're not swallowing them up at your own free will. You're kind of at the mercy of the enemies. Like, there'll be this like robot that has a giant hammer that just smashes you into like a spring that then gives you like a high jump, but you have to like let the robot hit you. But a lot of times you don't want, like, you need that high jump for like this one specific thing, but a lot of times you just have to navigate around those enemies and not take a hit. Like you get to like these little boss battles. Like I got to this like weird like rabbit that I had to play soccer against, this like rabbit and turtle, and like it took me like 12 tries to figure out what to do. And like pretty much this rabbit was just squishing me into a ball and throwing me into the net and just, okay, go back to the beginning of the stage and pound through a million blocks again and walk. It was like, it's like unbelievable how like, oh, I'm right at the end of this section. Like I just navigated all these corridors and broke all these blocks and oh, I got stung by a mosquito and now I'm inflatable and I fly all the way back to the top of the stage and now I got to navigate through all these corridors again. Like I honestly
Kevin?
don't know how I haven't stopped playing this game.
Kevin, can I inform you of a little thing that the Nintendo Switch Online gives you?
I know.
Which is
I was just
the
gonna say it.
rewind function.
You took the words right out of my mouth because I don't know how my frustration hasn't like forced me to use it at this point. Like I don't know how I'm just grinding away at this game because like there's parts where like you gotta let this like little like mummy thing like throw a donut in your mouth and then you turn fat and then you can like pound through different blocks, but then like if it's that like the stages switch from day to night every time you go back to the world map, so then like instead of the donut guy it'll be a zombie guy and then you gotta like jump over the head or else you turn into a zombie, and then if you get hit by the zombie you like fall through the skinny platforms all the way until you like get like walk into a window where like lights coming through and then you turn back into Wario. But there's so many cool power-ups along the way, and like I don't know what it is about the game that just keeps me plugging along, other than the fact that there are like so many cool, like as frustrating as they are, so many cool like one-off boss battles against where you play soccer against a tortoise in the hair, you know, and like all these little like one-off like really like even this one character, like this only time I've seen this like little caterpillar like popping out of a tree in the stage and like throwing apples into my mouth so I can turn fat instead of eating the donuts, but same mechanic, but like they're just gonna like throw this one new character into the mix, and like there's so much personality in the game.
Oh yeah.
And I started mentioning this, but like I was posting clips online like mentioning how frustrated I was getting with the game. Like I was like, I'm equally loving and hating this game at the same time, or whatever I said, and somebody was like, thank God for the hidden figure in the game, which is like the very first space on the map. And you can go back to that space and talk to this hidden figure like in the temple or whatever. And it kind of tells you what stage you can go to next.
Oh.
Because every stage essentially has 4 treasure chests in it. And you have to find the key that is the corresponding color to the corresponding color of the chest. And like you unlock like tons of new abilities as the game goes on, like either new parts of the map. But it's just like you have to keep going. It's not a linear map. Like you're going back from stage and like you're scrolling screen after screen after screen. Like it's a really tedious game to play through in a lot of regards. And like it has me tempted to like look up a guide at times. But at the same time, it does feel really fun to like figure out certain things. But it does like you do have to just be like, okay, I'm just going to bash against every wall in sight because that one might be destructible. Like there's not a lot of visual cues for a lot of that stuff. So it is like a lot of trial and error, but it's kind of a cool twist on like a Kirby type game, but different, you know, it's like getting a bunch of new power-ups, but being at the mercy of the enemies as opposed to like the enemies being at the mercy of you, you know. In Kirby, you can kind of like have your free will with the enemies, where like the enemies kind of have their free will with you in this game. Like they just like kick you to the fucking curb and say, go back and start from square one. And like, you got to like light yourself on fire and like jump at the perfect timing because Wario starts like scampering like crazy and you got to jump up these ladder platforms. But because it's Game Boy Color, it's so zoomed in, like you can't really see what's coming in advance. Like, so it is like you just got to do it a bunch of times. Like I don't know how any kids had a chance beating this game.
This is your only game they had?
No, I was going to say that you only had one game per like year.
Yeah, that's true. But
and it was a lot, like I didn't play 3 that much compared to like what I played 2, and then I beat, you know, Wario Land, and we talked about that on the podcast.
And I think we talked about 3 a little bit because I remember this world map and being like, what the heck is going on? And like, I'm glad that, again, this person like told me about the hidden figure. So I'm always like, if I ever don't know what level to play, it does like a little thing where after you unlock something, it kind of like certain stages will get like it'll like flash a little star and let you know, okay, there's a new thing you can do on this stage now that you have this ability. But if it's been a couple days since you played, you're like, wait, what 3 stages flashed last time? Like there's like at least 25 stages that I've unlocked now that all have 4 different essentially stages within them. It's crazy. This game is huge. It's huge for a Game Boy game. Like it's bigger than a lot of Super Nintendo games. I mean, I feel like I'm getting close-ish, but I mean, there could easily be another 5-6 hours left of this game, and I do intend on seeing it through, but man, it's going to take some determination and maybe some rewind feature, because I'm definitely using the save state. Although it actually has a save feature, like it obviously has like a battery save after you beat stages, but if you pause it in the middle of a stage, there's like a save option, and it'll actually, like, as soon as you do that, it exits out of the game. But if you boot up again, it's like in the exact spot that you were in.
That's cool.
Even without the save state. So I'm like, if you had this on, a cartridge back in the day, it would have been, somewhat doable. But man, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But it feels really cool to be able to play the games, right on the. I can't remember off the top of my head if I own Wario Land 3. I can't remember if I just played that on an emulator or not. But it just feels great to just like, fire this up. And otherwise, I probably wouldn't be playing this game if I wasn't able to play it like on my Switch when the power's out with a really nice screen and, comfortable Hori split pad, in my hand to like just make it a little more doable. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that game in spite of a ton of frustrations. Like I will say, if you're starting to hit a wall with this game, maybe like look up some tips and tricks. Cause like I did like look up a few things like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? This is driving me nuts. I don't know what to do.
It's more puzzle than anything, kind of like 2 was, right? So it's just kind of a different vibe than the original Wario Land that way. And I hit a similar wall with 2. So and I'm like, and I saw 3 was similar, and when I played, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just flip over to Wario Land 4 at some point.
Because 4 is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
4 is the pinnacle of that series, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
One day. I will say it does feel really cool though to like beef up, like, because Wario, you start out with like hardly any power ups, like, and now I can pick up enemies and throw them, and I can do a huge ground pound, and I can break different types of blocks, and I can roll and go under, like, you just get so many new abilities as the game goes on that it does keep it interesting. And it looks like, I'm only about halfway through the ability list. Like every time it shows you like a little like video tutorial of how to you get a new move, I'm maybe like just a little bit past halfway through the screen, and there's clearly more boxes for me to learn new moves. So yeah, I got another handful of hours left with this one, and I hope to see it through, but we'll see if I end up having the patience, because I never finish any games. But speaking of the exact opposite of that, I know, John, you've been playing a game that you've beaten many, many times over.
Yes, but we've talked a lot, I think, in passing about the like Mario and Luigi series, or just Mario RPGs in particular. Yeah. But man, as soon as like I saw that Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga was on the Game Boy Advance Switch Online, like there was nothing else I was going to play. Like this is one of my favorite games of all time, and like one that I can so clearly remember like the first time beating, and like especially like this is a game that I have beaten multiple times and done like in a variety of ways, and because of that, I have zero qualms rewinding the fuck out of this game. Like,
sure, that's fair.
Like I'm like, I've played this game. I don't need to like, I like, who am I like proving this to anyone?
Yep, right.
Like I am going through every single boss battle with a perfect health because I'm rewinding every attack and dodging it all, because I'm like, yeah, this is sick. This is a fun rhythm game. Like every attack from every enemy has like so many different patterns, and like if I'm just like, I can remember most of them, but occasionally I'll encounter one I was like, I don't remember how this one works. And then I get hit and I'm like, that was a good one. And then I just rewind it a few seconds and I'm like, all right, dodging that one for every other time.
Does the rhythm and input feel the same is the main question I have about this experience.
Absolutely. Yeah? Like when I'm doing bros attacks, it is kind of unbelievable how much that like muscle memory is just there. It's like, good God, I remember how knockback bros goes so easily. Like, and then as soon as like the advanced thing goes, I'm like, yep, now I remember how like the alternative button presses go to get like the secret like special like bros attacks. It is such a good game. Like
it's fantastic.
All respects, like music, like it is like the story is fun and entertaining. Like the humor is really good.
The humor is amazing. It's some of the best like Nintendo humor, like on par with the early Paper Mario stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And the puzzles are so fun and satisfying. Like
the kind of vertical level design, like a lot of that verticality that you don't see in like that top-down JRPG.
True.
Yeah. God, it's just such a good game. Like, and I'm so ecstatic that I can boot it up and play it at any time. Like, I've gotten pretty dang far in it, like so far, and I'm just blowing through it, and I've been bouncing between Nier Automata as well as Metroid Prime Remastered and what was the other one? Oh, Metroid Prime 2 or no, not Metroid Prime 2, Metroid 2
or whatever it's called. Like, it's got a subtitle of some kind.
But yeah,
Samus
Returns, or is it the Return of Samus? Because I think Samus Returns is the remake. We'll get into this.
You are correct.
Yeah, I was like, I can't remember which one's the 3DS one.
We'll table that. But like, this is the most I've bounced between like games like playing simultaneously that I've ever been in recent memory. Usually like I'll lock into one game and I'll only play that one game, but for whatever reason, like I am pretty consistently being like, all right, I'm going to play Mario and Luigi until I get like, you know, a little tired of it. And then I'm going to bounce over to Metroid Prime Remastered and play that till I get a little tired of it. And like, this is the most I've like consistently played games of like that I'm so invested in, and it's been really satisfying.
Gotta love that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And I'll just give a quick shout out too, because I was pretty impressed. I had never played any of those like Game & Watch gallery collections or whatever, and I was kind of surprised that they added that to the Game Boy, because I know like one of the glaring omissions right off the bat is like, how can they not put Donkey Kong 94 on here? You know, like I would probably rather have that over Mario Land 2 or whatever.
Mario Land 1,
whatever. Yeah, exactly. But there's a bunch of cool games on there. I'm not going to complain too much. And now I lost my train of thought. What I was going to say about what Game Boy game did I just mention?
I don't know if you got there yet.
Yeah, you didn't. You were just saying the glaring omission was 94.
Donkey Kong 94.
And then you were trying to talk trash about Mario Land 2, so I had to stop. When I first booted it up, I know I played through all of Kirby's Dream Land in one go.
Oh, yeah. That was really fun watching you play through that, because I'd never seen that game all the way through. I thought
that's like a 40-minute game.
About 30 minutes,
It was great. And I counted on my, like, there were 10 people in the credits of that game.
That's amazing.
It's bonkers.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it's like Sakurai is one of
them.
Yeah. It's like,
played that at my grandma's house one night. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of like what other games are on the like, because there's Tetris,
they added like Alone in the Dark, a couple like random Game Boy Color ones.
In the Dark. Wow.
Oh yeah, the Gargoyles Quest 2.
Oh, that game rules. That's
they added some cool kind of random stuff, like some pretty nice selection right off the bat, even though it's only 6 or 7 games or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Game & Watch gallery. Anyways, whatever I was gonna say about it, I was pretty impressed. Like I've never really played the Game & Watch games at all. I mean, I kind of, I know what they are. They're basically like those LCD style, handheld games or whatever. But I really didn't realize that, like, they have like the primitive original game on there as well. But then you can kind of play like an updated version of the games from like the Game Boy Color era. And in particular, I've been really playing that Donkey Kong Jr. one. And it's, it's same type of gameplay. You just have like up, down, left, right, and then 2 buttons, or it might even just be 1 button to jump. But you just kind of like, it's a little more. It still has that feel of that rigid LCD system where you're like not actually jumping. You're just kind of like moving from the ground to up and then timing. It's all about like timing and just, I don't know. It just like really captures that arcade feel, but kind of updates those games in a fresh way. The art style looks nice. Like I really like. They could have easily just ported those games and been like, oh, here's a collection of them, and they're like, oh, we kind of updated these and modernized them a bit.
They did that through Game Boy Advance. There was some on there too. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's cool. So
they put the love into those, even though obviously there's not that much to those games individually. But if you treat them like the mini game high score chasers they can be fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And to see them put like Kururin or whatever on the first batch, like, okay, we're getting some import stuff, getting some like kind of rare games like Gargoyle's Quest 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of random one-offs or whatever. And yeah, John, I know you mentioned you played a little bit of Metroid 2, and I know we're kind of probably for the rest of this episode going to veer into Metroid territory.
That's right, baby.
Because Randall's been playing some Metroid as well, not to mention Remastered, Prime that John mentioned earlier, but I played a little bit of Metroid 2 as well. I had booted it up just for like 2 seconds, but then John in our Discord had mentioned like, oh, if this game would have come out today, it would be Kevin's like favorite indie game if it, was the same type game. So I was like, okay, I got to play more of this to see like what John is getting at per se. And I don't know that I discovered that. And I don't have anything against the game really. I just like, to me, it felt kind of similar to Metroid games. And I, for whatever reason, just like that, the slow plotting controls and the airy floaty jump and whatever, just kind of, I don't know. I found it to be kind of like empty. I'm just kind of running around, but it still was like, man, it kind of almost feels like I'm playing a Super Nintendo game on Game Boy in a weird way. Just like the huge sprites and the whatever. I took down a couple Metroids. I think I down from 39 to 37.
Yeah.
But you've probably played a little bit more than me, and obviously are a bigger Metroid fan. But I was curious. I was like, I wonder what John was getting at with like why it would maybe speak to me. I was like, oh, maybe this is the Metroid game for me.
I was thinking mostly from like a restriction standpoint. Like I was really thinking about like how Pico 8 games are designed, like with the strict limitations of like you only have like the D-pad and like the A, B and like maybe one other button besides like a pause button. And just the fact that like the way that they incorporate in Metroid 2 the select button to switch over to missiles, and then the pressing.
And you start with those missiles right off the bat. It was kind of cool. Like, oh, I can go into morph ball mode right off. I don't have to like unlock these kind of basic abilities. Like I'm starting out powered up. That was cool.
And then the way that they add like spider ball into that.
Spider ball rules.
Spider ball is such a one. I'm amazed like at how well that was implemented, and two, like they like make it so that you press down twice to go into morph ball mode, and then 3 times to go into spider ball mode. And then if you like jump with a bomb, that will put you out of spider ball mode, but you can get back into spider ball mode in midair. So there's a ton of different puzzles that they like have with just like being in midair, because you can't get into morph ball mode from in midair. So, but if you can jump from like, there's so many things that they like keep it like, and then we very keeping with the like Metroid tradition of like fake walls and stuff, like moving through environment and really testing the limits of like what's real, what's not, and like going in exploration, like the way that, like you were saying, like it does feel like a Super Nintendo game. It doesn't feel like this is a Game Boy game. Like I get it's
not to mention you get like late. There's 3 save files that you can like cycle through on the start screen. I was like, wait, what? This is a Game Boy game.
Yeah. It's nuts.
It's so massive and it's so impressive. And like I had played when I started playing Metroid, I started playing with Fusion and the Prime series. So like it was really difficult for me to get into earlier era Metroid games. Like it took me
it's a different game,
a long time to get into Super Metroid, just because of the control scheme is so different with like the 4 face buttons and like running being mapped to a face button. And then like Metroid was like the original was enjoyable, but it took me kind of a while before I could even get into that. And so like I just really never gave Metroid 2 a try at all. And playing it now, I think with, I don't know, I really enjoyed the 3DS remake of the game. I thought that was an incredible game, and I really liked how that they incorporated the aiming with that, and that kind of got incorporated into Metroid Dread.
I was going to say, I really liked that they kind of carried that template over to the next game.
Oh,
absolutely.
Even though it was a remake of a different game, but it's cool that you're able to then, like, after having played the remake, go back to the original and kind of like appreciate, oh man, look at how much they changed.
Yeah, I mean, that was zero mission to one. Like, it was,
yeah.
So really going back and like, I was just curious more than anything, but as I was playing it, I was like, this is an unbelievable game. Like, this is truly unbelievable what they're getting out of the hardware of the Game Boy for like a Metroid game that feels exactly like the same level of exploration. Like, it doesn't feel like, yeah, this is the Game Boy version of that game.
No,
but
it actually, it almost feels a little bit more explorative or whatever the word I'm looking for, because like a lot of, like in the original Metroid anyways, it's a lot of like repeating stuff, and granted I only played maybe 20-30 minutes or so, but like every area I was like clearly remembering, oh, that's that corridor, oh, this is this corridor, oh, this is this area that I haven't gone yet. Like, it wasn't like, wait, this is that never-ending vertical shaft that, like, have I gone in the third room to the left or the fourth one? Like, it again, I didn't get very far. But I will say, if I hadn't been playing like 3 or 4 other games that I'm juggling between right now, it might have kept my attention a little bit more. It was just like, okay, I'm probably not going to keep this map in my brain.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably not going to keep playing this right now. But I definitely wasn't bouncing off it by any means. You know, it did feel like a Metroid game, but I was like, oh, I'm not lost. And I'm kind of like, I keep plugging forward, and that's always a good sign
to like play it and like I did with the original Zelda, like just draw a map of it.
Yeah.
So good to do. But I know Randall has been playing another Metroid game that is very near and dear to my heart.
I have. And I will add that I might have even mentioned this before on the podcast, but I do own Metroid 2, the original Game Boy version, and that was one of the first games that I remember getting. Like, my stepdad at the time bought it for me when I was like 7 or 8, when I like pointed to it off a shelf sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like played that, although I'd never wrapped my head around a game that was structured the way that game was at the time.
It's kind of open world almost.
Yeah. And
like
on top of that, like, I've never been good as like a navigation map person, and to only have like basically these like the Game Boy limitations visually of like the 4 palettes or whatever, right? Whereas like it gets a little hard to differentiate things, especially being that young. It was like, like I played a lot of it because again, it was one of the few games that I had available, but I was just like, I'm not sure if I'm fully getting this at this point, and I wish I would have stuck with it, because now I'm playing all these Metroid games and I'm like, maybe I'm a Metroid guy all these years later.
Yes, one of us.
I'm like, hey, if Randall's converting, maybe I'm just a few steps behind. I'm just coming up behind the curve.
Honestly, Kevin, it's worth the effort. Like I said in the Discord, I do wish that they had released a DX version of Metroid 2 back in the era. Granted, it was one of the big like, play this on your Super Game Boy because it's, kind of enhanced for that purpose. But I was a Genesis guy. I didn't have a Super Nintendo, so that was never available to me. But yes, all that to say, I feel like I'm turning into a Metroid guy. I'd played through Fusion. I love that game, as I've mentioned on the podcast. And, then obviously I played Super Metroid way long ago. I really like that game. And I played Zero Mission, which I also own physically. And that's how I played it with the Analog Pocket.
Yes.
And Zero Mission is very good too. It's good. Gosh, I like blew through that game. I'm really impressed visually by that game, like just like Kraid and Ridley and like how they look with that like enhanced like 32-bit art style is just awesome. God, and like the music is so good, and it's ultimately just remixes of the original NES version, which I didn't own the original Metroid as a kid on NES, but I got it, you know, in my early 20s from a buddy for like $5 or something, right? You know, it's and I still own that yellow copy, which looks so dope. But
I love that cover, yeah.
Yeah. But again, I like never really gave it much of a chance. I'd pop it in like, oh yeah, this works. It's original Metroid, and didn't have the patience to make my own
map it out.
Keep a password for every save.
But you know, now I'm like, maybe that would be an interesting experience to go back and do that now that I've gone through and beaten Zero Mission. And God, man, I did. I just ripped through that game. And it certainly didn't hurt that I had just played Fusion, you know, within the last year-ish or so tops, right? So
yeah.
And playing it on the Analog Pocket, it looks so good. And like Kevin was saying, you can dock that thing, and then I'm using one of the 8-bit DOE, you know, controllers that's effectively a Super Nintendo controller with a couple extra buttons. And
so you're playing like HD on the TV essentially.
Yeah. And then there's save states too. So I took advantage of that a little bit at the end just to save my sanity and push through. And God, it's
those stealth sections at the very end.
Oh man. Okay, so John,
little shades of dread here a little bit.
Yeah. So you're the resident Metroid expert, and I am ignorant of this. Is the Zero Mission aspect, the stealth aspect of that game, that's after you've defeated Mother Brain, is that in the original NES game, or did they add that to Zero Mission?
That whole section is added for Zero Mission.
I thought
that's cool. That's kind of cool.
Way.
They also added like the first boss, like that's like the burrowing worm. That's not in the original. And like even the like Kraid battle and Ridley battle, because those were single room battles.
Right.
Like Kraid is basically the Super Nintendo or Super Metroid boss battle, and then Ridley I think is closer to the original. Ridley 1.0 is the like, and then Meta Ridley for the Zero Mission is spoilers. Sorry, people. It's very obvious as soon as you get it. But like, the entire end section after you beat Mother Brain is completely new. So like that whole like, so for people who don't know, and like spoilers for the ending of Zero Mission, if you care about that, when you beat Mother Brain, you are put into your Zero suit, and like you lose all of your abilities. Like you don't even have you have a gun that you can charge that will stun enemies. But for the most part, you are like basically surrounded by end game space pirates, and you are sneaking through like all of these areas, and you can still crawl like a morph ball, but it's just Samus crawling like instead of being a morph ball.
Fast.
It's very slow, and there are like so many like sentry drones that are looking out for you, so it is a ton of like puzzle platforming like to
it almost sounds like it plays more like an Odd World game or something like that, or like a Prince of Persia, like not as deliberate on the gameplay like animation stuff, but like that type of level design kind of.
Yeah, but no, the end, and then at the very end you get all of your power-ups back, and I think you can even get back to the original game like through some like power bomb or screw.
You might be able to too.
Like a screw attack thing, so you could technically like go back and 100% everything from the original, like even though you're in this self-contained area at the beginning, kind of like at the end of Fusion, like you can unlock like shortcuts between all of the sectors and continue to like 100% it if you really want to. But the ending of Zero Mission is really fun. Zero Mission is a great version of like the original Metroid, but like I was I don't know if it's I guess it's spoilers that I haven't beaten Metroid Prime Remastered yet. I'm right before the ending. I've also just blasted through that game.
Through that,
oh my God. Because it's all second nature to me. I'm like getting artifacts as I'm like going through the thing. I'm not even waiting for end game. I'm like, I know I can get this with all of the abilities I have. But like I know that the my preferred way of playing the original Metroid was on the Metroid Prime on GameCube, because you could just save there and it would just boot up wherever you last saved. So you didn't have to deal with passwords or anything. And so like that's how I beat the original Metroid, was playing it through Metroid Prime. And like it still holds, like, and this may be, again, like I'm a weird little freak who loves every Metroid game, but like I still think
you're not coming at it with nostalgia. Maybe for the series you are, but you're not having played the original, like, oh, I loved this growing up as a kid or whatever, you know.
Oh yeah. It's just so fun.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth mentioning too, like not only with these Metroid, I would say like Metroid Zero Mission and Fusion and even Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, like I would say those are classic games in their own right.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like, and I know they're 32-bit and whatever, but you know, they kind of feel like Super Nintendo games at heart. And like,
yeah,
I feel like if those games would have come out on Super Nintendo, like we would be talking about these like among the greatest games ever made. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? I just feel like just something about them being handheld games, they like kind of like live in this like a cut below realm for some reason, when it's like if Mario Luigi Superstar Saga was like the follow up to Super Mario RPG, it'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This just changed video games, you know, like it's like, you know, I know it obviously came years and years later too, but I don't know. It's just I've always feel like it's like worth mentioning that, again, like being able to play them on an analog pocket or on the Switch or on an HD TV, like with bright, you know, the way they were meant to look or whatever, just in like a whole new glory. It's like it feels awesome to appreciate these games now.
It does. It's a good point, and it proves that they hold up against full console release games. Because you're right. We're playing these on our TV or on our modern consoles, and they're just great games. Great games are great games.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And in a lot of cases, like because they were built around being played handheld, they're built around like playing in smaller chunks or bursts, or in like just shorter games, which are right up our alleys.
Yes.
Yeah. So
or with really like powerful like color design, especially like on the Game Boy Advance, so that you could see everything because it wasn't originally backlit. So it's
the way the colors pop on those systems, like especially Wario Land as well. Like seeing like with the Game Boy Color setting, it's like, man, this game looks awesome.
Yep.
So cool. But any more thoughts on Zero Mission before we move on, or just the handheld stuff in general?
Just like the cutscenes were awesome in Zero Mission too.
Yeah.
Like just added to like the overall feel of that game. I just like plowed through that game. Like man. And I honestly, John, I might pop in the original NES Metroid and see what I can pull off.
Parts of it are rough. I will not like the Ridley boss battle sucks. Like it is just bad. But like the Mother Brain battle, that rules. Like so you get the whole spectrum of it.
I know what I'm getting into at this point, at least. So
yeah. But I guess keeping on that Metroid track, I know we've mentioned both of you have been playing some Metroid Prime Remastered as well. I mentioned before we started recording, like that, right off the bat, it's like, oh man, they're sold out, physical copies everywhere. Yeah. I know, John, you ended up just going the digital route and just saying, okay, I'm not waiting.
John's not going to wait
this situation. Plus, at the time, I think it was like, hey, who knows what the situation is? Thankfully, it looks like Nintendo's gonna at least try to restock, in a reasonable fashion. So I'm definitely like, okay, $40. I'm probably, even though I'm kind of like, $30 would have been nicer, but I know they did like give it they like straight up remade this game from scratch from what I heard, from what I can tell. I mean, I'm sure they reused some stuff, but I heard they like remade every asset and updated it to,
it looks incredible. Like
it does.
That's
have
great to hear.
So much fondness for this game. Like Metroid Prime 1 and 2 like constantly jockey for my favorite game of all time, and this is just like, it was like, I mean, I've played this game so many times. Like it wasn't like gonna surprise me, but it just felt so good. And especially with like the new control scheme, like that was the main
do you go
thing.
The traditional, just like default new control scheme?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I think I switched Y-axis and turned off like motion control, like because once you lock on, you can use motion controls to like fine tune it. And like I've just been so used to locking on with the traditional way that like I just removed that from it. But other than that,
you're playing dual stick as opposed to like the primitive like version of it on GameCube or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Even though like it may be muscle
works.
memory, like I'm still primarily locking on and like still like jumping around and moving, but I'm using it to like I use the dual stick to control like in very specific situations. Like the thing with the locking on in the original GameCube title is like anytime you were against like the aerial pirates or like the Chozo or anything that like your combat visor wouldn't be able to lock on, I was like, oh well, I can just aim at them now. I was like, and I'd like use it as a traditional FPS. I was like, oh, this game's much easier now. I mean, for like more very specific like situations,
but even more just for like navigating though. Like if you're just like going around a corner, like I tend to like when I'm playing a first person game, I just kind of hold down forward and then use the right stick to steer. Yeah. Essentially, depending on the situation, obviously, but like that seems like it would work ideally. Where it did, even going back and we played GoldenEye not too long ago, and it's like, oh man, this does not have twin stick controls, and it feels weird. Now I know they did a better job with Prime, the original version of it, but yeah, that's enough to like between that and the full remake. But I'm glad you said how great it looks, because I remember like when they first announced it during the Nintendo Direct, like a couple people were like, I just saw comments online or whatever. They're like, is it too early to say this is the best looking game on Switch? And at least from the little clips that they showed, I was like, that didn't look that great from what I saw. But
level. It just looks like a clean version of the original game.
Yeah, like, I was like, it looks better than the GameCube version, but I'm not really seeing how this is the best looking game on Switch. Again, not that it's the visual powerhouse console, but
I would say that's more the strength of the art design of the original game.
Right.
Yes. Like the actual, like, I don't think the game looks that incredible, but like
it's just clean.
It
just doesn't necessarily feel as dated as you would think.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is a 20-plus-year-old game, I think, at this point, or at least pushing 20.
I was going to ask Randall if you noticed, have you gotten the thermal visor?
Is that before the magma area or whatever?
Oh, it might be after.
I'm like right at that point.
Gotcha. Like, because I wanted to ask if you thought when you got the thermal visor, if they didn't change that from the original thing, and if that was a art decision, because like it looks like a game. Like as soon as you switch from the like combat or scan visor to the thermal visor, it looks exactly the same as the GameCube. And like, part of that I think was an intentional art decision, because it is lower resolution and it is just like heat maps, and like it is, I think it looks good, like how bad it looks in comparison. And then like
making me
switching
go back
over
into
to
old time machine, because I played through like half of Prime on GameCube the first time I owned a GameCube, and I think I got like right after getting that visor is when I stopped for no good reason.
I think that's about where I got as well. That's actually, but that and Super Metroid are the furthest I've made it into a Metroid game, and I would say Prime, I stopped playing Super Metroid because I got frustrated or lost or stuck or something. But Prime, I just stopped because I just played something else or whatever. I was enjoying what I played of that game up to that point. I just forgot where I was at and picked it up again like months later. I was like, oh, what am I doing again? And just never got back into it. But I'm very intrigued to get this game. And by the way, it came out in 2002. I just looked up. Metroid
2 years
Prime
after
originally.
Wario Land.
A year and a half only, which is crazy, man.
That's amazing.
That's unbelievable to me.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I love
what
that.
an era that GameCube games were coming out and Game Boy Color games were coming out at like roughly the same time.
An 8-bit game and roughly a 128-bit game. Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
amazing.
And it definitely has me intrigued. Like, I don't know, have you guys heard anything? Like, are they planning on remastering the whole rest of the series, or is this kind of like a, because it obviously just kind of came out of nowhere.
Hopes up like this, man. Like
I've seen some mixed things on that. Of
I've
what
seen
Nintendo's
mixed things
plans
too.
Are. Yeah.
I've seen like they're gonna remake them, but they're not gonna have the same level of remastering. Like they're just gonna be a little more
drop them on Switch
port slaps. Yeah.
Which also I don't care.
That's not terrible.
I'm a mark. I'll buy any fucking thing that has Metroid
me too.
on it. Like,
of course.
and they kind of needed to drop something like with how long they've kind of been silent about Metroid Prime 4. Like I shouldn't say needed, but it helps the cause to just be, hey, look, and maybe this was just them like wiping the surface clean and like, let's just get our bearings. Let's get Metroid Prime down again and use this as the engine for 4. And, maybe I don't know, but it feels like maybe this was like, hey, let's just get back to the basics and get 4 right.
If they put 2 and 3 out with this exact control scheme, they could literally like dump the ROM and just like put this control scheme on them. That would be the only difference, and they would instantly be my game of the year. Like these are like 1 and 2 are like so easily my favorite games of all time, and like playing this version of 1, I'm just like, God, I just want to play 2 now in this, which is really infuriating because I'm like, well, now I'm going to just play it on GameCube. And like I would really love to be able to play it on Switch, and then I should replay 3 at some point, but like it's just that difference in control scheme that's just a little bit off, but like it's still 3 is still a solid game. Like I would love to play it with this control scheme.
Yeah,
like,
maybe we'll get that.
I would.
That would definitely be cool. And even if they end up doing like a Nintendo thing at the end and like, get the whole Metroid trilogy collection physical, or get
they won't do that.
Get the whole, including 4 and like some
that
kind
ain't
of
gonna
deluxe
happen,
edition.
Bud. That's not.
You never know.
I'll tell you right now.
They might milk their like do all 3 separate and then have some collector's edition of like all 3.
They do a box set
$200
where you buy like it's just the packaging of all.
You get all 4
separate.
games when Prime 4 comes out.
The cost of all 4 of them.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting a deal. You're paying double. You're paying double and getting a cheap art book with it.
Yes.
God, yeah.
That is what's going to happen.
But no, you've been putting a little time into this as well, Randall.
Oh, yeah. So I basically, John was already saying, like, I'm an hour and a half in, and basically, guess what? One of the games I'm going to talk about later this year is like, oh, shit. Okay. And I'd seen like the murmurs of like, can't find the physical copy here or here. And then I see on Slick Deals, which is a deals website, like, hey, it's available at the Nintendo store at full price. I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. Well, let me grab that right now. Mm-hmm. And then I happened to get that Bowser plushie for Fiona, which, I had been looking for a while. So it's kind of nice. That got me my free shipping from the Nintendo store.
Win-win.
Literally the last thing I bought from the Nintendo store that was a game was freaking Xenoblade Chronicles back with Operation Rainfall, when that was the way that you could get that game.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, so I think the only thing I've ever got from them directly is like stuff through like Club Nintendo, when I got like those weird like one-off things and whatever.
Yeah. So I'm like, I got it in the mail, and I was like, it was like a week later, but still I was just psyched to get it because, like I'd said earlier, I kind of bounced off it on GameCube and then sold that game with my first GameCube back in the day for an Xbox so I could play my NFL 2K5 in college or whatever, and then said, oh shit, I need a GameCube again. And then
what was I thinking? Got
a GameCube with that Metal Gear Solid remake that they did and a couple other really good games, so it worked out. But so that was kind of my Metroid Prime experience at that point. I don't think I even played 2, which I really hope that happens, that ends up on Switch. But
me too.
Man, Prime this Metroid Prime Remastered, I'm loving this so far on Switch, and it just reinforces like, I think I'm a Metroid guy. I think this is happening. Yeah. The pacing is freaking awesome. The mood on Prime.
The mood is
freaking awesome.
Yeah. I remember the mood most explicitly from when I played years ago.
It is its own mood, and like the soundtrack is
so good.
It's amazing. Every time John brings it up and plays some of it, it's like, okay, I'm not even going to argue, man. This is sweet.
Like the
it's like
effects.
EDM, but like chill. It's so good.
It's good. It's great. It's perfect.
But the energies, when you get into like battle, like it really does set a vibe. Like it really makes you feel like you're exploring a planet alone, kind of.
It kind of feels like an early 2000s game, like a Half-Life, but not in a bad way. I mean, no disrespect when I say that. It's like, that's like, oh, this is my shit in a certain kind of way. Like, and it feels good. And yeah, just like this remaster just cleans it up. And that's all I ever want. That's also why I play half of my retro stuff upscaled. It just cleans it up, right? I just like, give me the base game as clean as possible in a streamlined way that I can play on my TV. And that's what this did with this remaster. And I'm glad that I'm really giving this another shot in a real way with this version of this game. And it means I'm going to see this through and see what comes next. Definitely.
Man. You've got so many, like, there's so many.
Yeah, that pool is
moments.
deep.
Like, there are specific scenes that like still hit me every time I get, and like if you're just in Magmore Caverns, like you've got some good shit coming up.
Oh, I'm excited. And it's not like, I've already died a few times, like on trying sections, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I gotta kind of be serious about this. This is not easy either, but that's cool too. I'm liking the difficulty curve there.
I will say the biggest limitation to the like control scheme with like the twin stick control scheme is the fact that in order to either you can switch priority if like you use the D-pad to switch your visors or your beams, and then you can hold X to then use the D-pad to switch one or the other. And my only complaint with that is that you used to be able to, on the GameCube, move with the analog stick and switch your beams as you were moving with the C stick. And if you have the visor to the D-pad, which is what it was on the GameCube and what my muscle memory is set to, like you can't really use the D-pad with holding X and move. You have to be stationary for that.
Right.
And there is a boss battle, like one of the third to last boss battle in the entire game involves a lot of beam switching. And like all I could think about is like, when I play this game on hard mode, this is going to be a nightmare. Like, because it is notoriously like one of the hardest boss battles in all of like the entire Metroid Prime series. And like, especially on hard, I think I've beaten it once on hard mode on the original GameCube. And like, like, I was thinking about like, and again, this was me as someone who is playing it and being perfectly fine on the normal difficulty, but I'm just like, when I replay this game on it.
But that's saying something, because like I don't think of you as like typically like, I'm gonna play hard mode after I beat the game type of player, but like the fact that you like these games so much that you're just like, I've played them so many times, like give me that extra challenge, like I want to play it again still.
One of his favorite games.
It's only on my favorit games, and even then, like as we discussed on the Mario and Luigi, I'm like, but I'm done with having difficulty.
Let me make sure that roulette wheel comes up on 2 or 3 every time. I'm not taking any ones. I was cracking up like when you get the buff bonuses at the end of every battle. John's like, nah, I'm not taking any ones.
It is funny that you say that about the visor switching, though, because I even looked. So I'm like, hey, in this remastered, can like I remap more of my controls to maybe like throw that guy on like one of these face buttons or even a shoulder button? Even though we've talked about how we all don't like the switching shoulder buttons, but I'm like, like I don't really need jump on a shoulder necessarily.
No, I wish,
you know what I mean?
I really wished you could have done that. But like, I will say also there's the beam combos, which are like the super missile is when you charge beam and then you shoot a missile. The way that those are also mapped is a little weird, because like I've been using the R button instead of the A button to shoot, like as a traditional twin stick shooter, which also feels really great.
It does. That's how I've been doing it too.
Yeah. And like And the way that the charge, it's these are all the nitpickiest things that do not matter at all. But
Nope.
like when you do that, I have it so that, or at least the preferred method, because I think you can charge with the R button and then shoot with the Y button, or you can charge with the ZR button and shoot with the R button. And I actually really like the arc because I don't use two fingers on the triggers. I just use my index finger on the ZR button.
Same.
Like I kind of like holding down the ZR button and then moving my finger up to launch it. Like it feels tactile to like be like, yeah, I'm launching the combo,
like releasing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun. Just a good port. Good port of that game.
Very good port. Very fun surprise.
And I feel like possibly even a better port if you're somebody going into it like myself or Randall that maybe doesn't have that muscle memory like baked in so heavy. So you're like, there might be a few things here and there where you're like, oh, I wish this worked like this, but you're not necessarily like, oh, I remember it like this, and now I'm having a hard time, getting my head around this new scheme or whatever. But I think you can still do like a classic control scheme too, right?
You can do classic.
So that's
you
cool.
can do like a Wiimote so that it's like the like Wii collection.
Little gyro action.
I haven't tried that yet.
Me neither.
I have that Wii collection, and I remember I only dabbled in all the games like briefly, but I remember thinking I like the way it feels. Like other than like, I don't like having to always be aware of how I'm holding the Wii remote and the angle, and like you just have to be so active with it like that. Where a joystick, you just have to nudge when you want to. Mm-hmm. But it's still like, if you are in the mood to play a game super actively, it can be fun.
Yeah.
I do like that
definitely.
Wii remote, that aiming, it just feels good.
Oh, yeah. It has its own time and place for sure.
Yeah. Especially with the light gun games when we were doing our retro hunting. It was like, oh, man, I'm tempted to get some of these that I don't have. Although I have most of the Wii ones, like House of the Dead, Overkill, and all those remake, Ghost Squad, all that stuff. So,
yep.
But I don't know. I'm sure we'll end up digging into some more Metroid Prime Remastered and just Metroid in general in the future. But any more initial thoughts on that before we wrap things up this evening?
I'm good for now. I've said my piece.
There will certainly be more opportunities because I'm going to keep playing this.
And I inevitably probably will end up picking this up as well. I'm going to do my Demon Throttle dance and go, but they announced a second pressing. I guess I got to get it before I miss my chance again.
Yeah.
Because there is that, those Nintendo games do skyrocket if they become like a sought after game, like a Xenoblade or what. It's like, oh man, if those run out of new copies from Nintendo, it's like forget about paying a reasonable price for it. So might as well do it now. So. Yeah, I think we can wrap things up with the video game chit chat there for this week. And hopefully it won't be another month or two before we can all sit down and chat together again. Because, it does feel like it's been too long in a lot of regards. But it was great catching up with you guys in person. And one of these days we got to sync up and get all through. John and I got to make a trip out to Seattle, both to see Randall and see our friend Glenn, who was just in town. Yeah, we got to make a trek and do this in person one of these days. But otherwise, we'll catch you next week. We're on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and pretty much everywhere else. And until next week, we'll catch you then and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Crazy how much less delayed it is right now compared to the first clap.
Yeah, actually,
whatever. Like it was a bigger
you're right
delay.
About that. Yeah.
That's weird. But it's all good.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
That's why they're separate recordings.
Yep.
It's audio, baby. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's internet is behaving at the moment and their computers.
Speaking of, I just bought, so I tried to do a stream the other day, for one of our Patreon polls. Like I was like, okay, I'll do the stream for what won. And it just wouldn't connect again. And I was like, man, it just seems so spotty. Like I can't connect reliably. So I was like, fuck it. I'm buying a 50-foot Ethernet cable. I'm running this thing from downstairs to upstairs when I stream. I haven't tried it yet, other than I plugged it in and it seemed like it was connecting. Like it. Oh yeah. It wasn't the little error wasn't popping up.
You're good.
I think it just wasn't a solid enough connection between the walls and the stairs and it was just enough to not let it connect. And then if on off nights, I was like, I can't have this maybe because it's already a crapshoot if I feel good enough to stream.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. I'm sick of being like, hey, I think I'm going to try to stream today. Oh, sorry. Can't do it. So
Totally fair.
Hopefully this should fix the problem.
That's right.